Hi all PMP aspirants, I am Pratibha and we are here with our another set of video on Scrum series where we will discuss about Scrum events. The previous video which we prepared was on the introduction of Scrum. We also discussed about the values of Scrum, uh, pillars of Scrum, and we discussed about the three main roles, role of a product owner, Scrum Master and development team. In my last video, I also discussed about some commonly asked questions about these three different roles, and these commonly asked questions will help you answer your situational questions in your PMP exam very easily. So I have bookmarked that video. I will request all of you, in case you want to straightforwardly jump to those questions, you can just easily navigate through that bookmarking. In today's video also, we will discuss about some of the commonly asked questions and very confusing questions about these events. The planning event, then the daily scrum, then review and the retrospective meeting. So there are certain commonly asked question that let's say whether the daily sprint meeting or the daily scrum meeting should be conducted or not in case a scrum master is not present, or if any development team member gets sick, should we do this meeting in that case. So answers to all these questions you will get in that section. So my today's video also I will bookmark it. Now coming to the topic, uh, firstly, what is a sprint? So sprint is basically a, a time boxed periodic activity which the development team does, and they are in that uh, activity, or in that duration, the scrum team tries to create and works to create potentially releasable, usable, developed features. So these three are uh, are the component of the features that they are working upon in a sprint. So there are certain characteristics which this sprint has. What are these characteristics? First is, this sprint event will always be time boxed. Now, uh, many people ask why we time boxed our sprint event. So this is the philosophy of Scrum, you can say, wherein whatever we are trying to achieve, we always divide it into a period of 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, or 4 week. So depending upon the goal which you are trying to achieve, depending upon the features which you are trying to develop into that time boxed period of 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, 4 week, depending upon the need of your organization, you time boxed that event. Why we time boxed? Again, so that we can demonstrate progress. We have always seen this, that in predictive environment, in predictive setup, there are long laundry list of work in progress items. Why these long laundry list of work in item falls in place in predictive life cycles? It is because these are not time boxed event. Here the development team knows that in this time box of 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 2 weeks or 1 week, I need to deliver these many developed features that can be used, and features that are potentially releasable also in nature. So the team remains focused in attaining the goal of that scrum. Every sprint has a goal, and this goal and the definition of done is decided at the beginning of sprint planning meeting that takes place. In the planning meeting only, product owner defines the goal of that particular scrum, those features which team is trying to deliver through that script, through that Scrum meeting. So it helps in demonstrating the progress. Second thing is, it helps in avoiding the gold plating. So what is gold plating? Sometimes what happens, in order to impress customer, develop team development team comes up with certain features, certain additional features you can say, which is not even asked by the customer, which is not into their requirement. So in order to impress customer, they develop those features, though it was not into the list at all. And if we know that I just have a time box of 4 weeks, let's say, and I need to develop 7 features, then my focus, the development team focus would be in developing those 7 features, not on adding up any extra features which is not even in, which was not even there in the requirement list. Third thing is, it limit my work in progress item. So how it limits my WIP items? It limits my WIP items. Again, I'll take the example of predictive environment or a traditional project setup, wherein the team is working on developing a project, let's say for a period of 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year. In case if they are stuck at any particular feature or any issue, it will be very easy for them to jump onto the next feature. And because of this attitude and because of this reason, in the predictive or waterfall cycles of the project, in the lifetime of predictive projects, you will see there are many WIP items that has gathered, and that is the first point which I covered, that there is a laundry list of WIP items in predictive setup. But if I know that in the 4 weeks I need to develop some product, I need to deliver it, there is a feedback that will come from the customer, and there are certain frequent checkpoints which I have kept. So I will only take up that kind of a work or that quantum of the work that I can achieve in that 4 weeks of a period. Development team will not commit or overcommit to any of those tasks or work which they cannot achieve in this 4 week time boxed period. So it helps in limiting those WIP items. Next point is prioritization. Now again, if I know that in one calendar year, in one calendar month, after 4 weeks, I need to come up with a potentially releasable product, then for me and for customer also, it becomes very important to earn return on their investment. So here the focus would always be to develop those features which are highly prioritized, which has the highest priority, and then the team will develop the lower priority features. So it also helps in doing the prioritization. All of this happens because we keep our sprint time boxed in nature. Then again, it motivates closure. When I know that I need to develop a feature, if even if I'm facing any issue, I will make all the possible effort to close that issue, because I need to achieve ultimately the goal of my sprint, which was delivering a potentially releasable and usable feature. If I compare it with a predictive environment setup, then if any problem comes up, any obstacle comes up, it would be very easy for the team to jump on to the next feature, keep it into a WIP list and not close it as and when that issue has arisen. But this becomes very difficult in case of a time boxed sprint, and that is why it motivates closure of the pending issues. The second feature which we have about these sprint is they are of short duration in nature. Again, why do we keep it short duration in nature? You can say ease of planning. If somebody would ask me to develop a plan for next 3 months and next 6 months or next 6 months, it will be difficult for me to come up with that plan. But if someone asks me a roadmap for next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or let's say next 1 month, then it will be easy for me to chart that plan. And that is why we keep the duration of our sprints also limited to a maximum period of 1 calendar month. You can say 4 weeks, not more than that. Short duration also helps in regularly getting feedback. As we know that we are developing a potentially releasable feature, we will also be demonstrating that feature to the client, to product owner, in order to take their feedback. So shorter duration also helps in getting frequent and quick feedbacks. Another advantage which we have for short duration is that within the short duration, we can have frequent checkpoints. So we will see in a Scrum event, one of the event which we have is daily sprint. So we can, the development team can have the daily sprint which is done on daily basis, and it can help in having those frequent checkpoints. If any impediment, any obstacle the team is facing, it can be highlighted early. Now, another thing which it helps, which the short duration help is in keeping capping on your error. Now imagine if you were developing a website and in the predictive setup you decided to take up a 3 months period or 4 months period to develop that website, and if any error is committed by your team in that development during that phase of 3 months, you will not get to know it, because the feedback you will be receiving is only after 3 months or 4 months. But here, if I am developing a website and if I have divided it into the different number of features, like first I am going to develop the registration and the login functionality. Even if some error has taken place in that 1 month of the cycle, it will be easier for the team to fix those errors rather than working on the entire product for 3 months and then working on all the errors which the team has committed. So that is why short duration also helps. Third feature which we have about sprint is that it has a consistent duration. So the team always tries to keep the consistent duration. If your sprint is let's say of 4 weeks, then the other or subsequent sprints will always be of 4 weeks. Why we want to keep the duration consistent? Because we want team to fall into this habit of doing the work in those time boxes. Let's imagine if I kept one sprint of a duration of 4 weeks and another subsequent sprint of 1 week, then what happens if any work remains pending out of this 4-week sprint? Then the product owner or the scrum master cannot think of spilling over this work to the next sprint, because it is just of a duration of 1 week. So because you want your team to get into that habit of working on those consistent time boxes of 4 weeks, it gives them it helps in developing that cadence. So to get the advantage of cadence and to get into this rhythm of working on to those consistent durations of 4 weeks each, it helps in easy planning and it also helps in developing that rhythm for the team. So yeah, ease of planning. As I said, if any spillover work of 4-week sprint remains pending, then I can always push it to the next sprint, provided the next sprint is also of the equal duration. Another important point, a very important point rather, that no goal altering changes. So as we discussed, at the in every sprint meeting, in every sprint we have a goal to achieve. This goal is described by the product owner, and the development team tries to achieve that goal through that sprint. So we never want to change or alter that goal of that sprint once that sprint starts running. Why we do not want to change the goal of the sprint? Because we want the development team to focus on achieving that goal. If we keep on making changes, then the team will be deviated from achieving that goal because of the too many changes that is happening. Now, does it mean, many people ask this question, does it mean the Scrum team needs to be rigid enough? Once the sprint has started, we can never cancel that sprint, or we can never change the goal of that sprint? So the answer to this question lies in saying that Scrum team needs to be flexible enough in deciding whether that change can be done or accommodated in the current sprint or not. If the product owner comes to you with a small minor changes, let's say you are developing a registration or a login functionality, and Scrum Master and the product owner comes up with certain additional validations like special characters are not allowed in the first name, or the phone numbers should also have the landline numbers, can also have the landline numbers. Then those validations are very small validations. They can be accommodated by Scrum team. But if the product owner comes up with a significant change which can impact the goal of the existing sprint, then team can decide to take it up in the next sprint. So it completely depends upon the changes which is coming, and if it is the team needs to be flexible enough to adapt to those changes, and it should not be a major or significant change. Now coming to the questions, commonly asked questions which people has. First is, can we cancel the sprint? The answer to this question, I would say, in the usual situations, we would never try to cancel the sprint, because sprint has a goal. Development team has already started working on it. They would have still made certain progress onto it. So we would not want any such deviation to take place. However, if the goal of that sprint becomes obsolete in nature, let's say if your competitor has developed more advanced features than the features you were working upon, or if the requirement of that feature for the customer has changed, or the priority has changed, if that feature has become a lower priority feature now, if certain market changes has taken place, then we can always cancel the sprint. The decision to cancel the sprint lies only and only with product owner. No one else can cancel the sprint other than the product owner. Product owner will also cancel it in the rarest of the rare situation, such as when the goal of that sprint becomes obsolete. So very important question. Please remember this. Second question which people ask is, what should be the duration of a sprint? Should it be 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, 4 week? What the duration should be? So it completely depends upon what the team is trying to achieve. If the team is trying to develop a website, then they can have a sprint of 4 weeks because it will take significant amount of time. If the team is working on just the UI redesigning part, then they can keep the sprint duration to be 1 week. So it completely depends upon what the team is trying to achieve. Basis that uh, the goal should be defined, and basis the goal you should come up with the duration of your sprint. Another question, and very important question, which people get confused about is, do we need to release the features at the end of each sprint? So the goal of each sprint is to come up with a usable, potentially releasable feature, but it is not necessary to release those features mandatorily at the end of the release. Release of the feature can happen at any point in time. It can happen in the middle of the sprint as well. But the goal of the Scrum team is that at the end of the sprint, they always come up with a usable, potentially releasable feature. Whether to release those features, actually release them or not, it completely, that decision lies with the customer or product owner. So answer is no. We don't need to mandatorily release the feature at the end of the sprint. Now that we have understood what a sprint is, what its features are, that it should be time boxed in nature. Time boxed means not more than a 1 month sprint. So the duration would come to be of 4 weeks. It should be of shorter duration. It should have that consistent duration so that team can develop a rhythm. And the goal of that sprint should not be altered very frequently. So these, now that we have understood the sprint, we will come to the four main events which takes place in Scrum, which is planning, daily Scrum, retrospective, and review. So what is planning meeting? What we do? What we need to understand about planning meeting is the two things which we are trying to do into this meeting is, first is deciding on the scope of the delivery. What are we going to develop? What is the scope of that delivery? And second is, how are we going to develop it? So these are the two main objectives of having this planning meeting. First is deciding upon the goal of that sprint. What are we going to achieve? And second thing is, how are we going to achieve? So this meeting is again time box meeting. You can have a planning meeting of 8 hours for a 1 month sprint. So if you have a sprint comprises of 2 weeks, you can time box it for 4 hours. And accordingly, such tweakings can be done. Who should be present in the planning meeting? The entire Scrum team, which is your product owner, your Scrum master, and your development team. All should be present in the planning meeting. Now, we were discussing the two things which we do. First is deciding the scope, and second is plan. How are we going to achieve it? So when it comes to scope, this decision lies with product owner. What are we going to deliver in the upcoming sprint? This decision completely lies with product owner because he is the owner of product backlog. Many people ask what is product backlog. They also remain confused about product backlog. So let me explain you product backlog. Product backlog is your single source of all the requirements requirements of a new feature, requirement of any improvement in the existing feature, any bug fixes which is required, or any infrastructure features or infrastructure development that should take place. So all your requirements, the single source for that is your one Scrum artifact, that is product backlog. Now we know that product backlog is something which is owned by product owner. He is the one who is responsible for refining that product backlog. He will refine it in a way that highest priority features will always displayed at the top of product backlog. So product owner will tell us what is the scope of this particular sprint, what we will try to achieve, what will be the goal. But so let's say your product owner has told you that you need to develop the registration and login functionality in the next sprint. Now in this registration and login functionality, there will be user stories that will be developed. How many stories? So let's say for these two features, the team has developed 10 user stories. Now how many stories the development team will pick to develop in this sprint, that decision completely lies with development team. So what you are going to develop, that is going to be decided by product owner. But how are you going to achieve it, and how many features you are going to pick, or how many user stories that you are going to pick from those two features, login and registration functionality, that decision completely and solely lies with development team. So development team will look into their velocity, into what they have achieved last, and they will look into their own capacity, and basis that they will decide how much they will achieve in the current sprint. Now what are the considerations which the product owner, Scrum Master, and even the development team should look for whenever they are deciding the scope of their sprint? So firstly, the latest product increment. You need to understand the existing product which has been developed by the development team so far. How does that product increment looks like? What are the existing features this product already has, and this product the development team has already developed into it. Basis that they are going to decide upon the next features which they are going to develop. To develop the next feature, they will look into their capacity. So capacity is how many development team members are available with them for this particular sprint. What is the velocity of that team? Velocity means how much work and what is the efficiency of the team, and how much work they can do in a sprint. Then third thing is product backlog, which we just discussed. So this product owner will look into the product backlog, and he will pick the highest priority features and tell to the development team the features that needs to be developed. Those features will further broken down into user stories. Now what is user story? So user story is basically the requirement which we are explaining on behalf of the customer. So what I say that as a customer, I need to have a login functionality on this website. So any user requirement which is explained from the perspective of the customer, that is called as a user story. So please note that user stories development is not mandatory in Scrum. You can develop user stories, so you can also choose to define your requirements in some other fashion. So as we were just discussing, the scope, the features will be decided by product owner, but if these features are further broken down into user stories, then how many user stories the team will pick, the development team will pick in the current sprint or in the next sprint, that decision completely lies with development team. Another thing, another consideration which they need to have while deciding the goal of that particular sprint is the past performance of the team. So what is the velocity, how many story points the team has achieved so far or in their last sprint. Basis that, they will decide how many story points the team can the development team can achieve in the next sprint. Now again, coming to the most commonly asked questions regarding the planning meeting, sprint planning meeting. So the first question which we have is, what if someone falls ill or sick? What if your Scrum Master falls sick during the sprint? So if your Scrum Master falls sick during the sprint, then the senior development team member can play his role for that period to backfill the Scrum Master's role. He can facilitate the work and any impediments which the team is facing, then the senior team member can help the remaining team members in going through and solving those impediments. If any of your development team member gets sick during the sprint, then should the goal, or should we cancel the sprint in such a case, or what should be done in such a case? So if any development team member falls sick, so first I need to explain you that if you have let's say 100 people hour planned work, then if you have an availability of 100 people hour, then Scrum Master will always plan to the extent of 90 to 95 people hour, because he will always keep that buffer period for any uncertainty that is going to happen, that can happen. But let's say if any of the development team member falls sick for a longer period and he remains absent from the development part for a very long time, then in such a case Scrum Master can always highlight this issue to the product owner, and he can renegotiate the pending scope of that sprint. So that can be done. So what we have discussed is what should happen in case a Scrum Master falls sick. So if the Scrum Master falls sick, then the senior development team member can play his role. But if the Scrum Master remains absent for a longer period, then maybe the organization can choose to bring another Scrum Master from another team for that period. And if any development team member is missing, then you can Scrum Master can renegotiate the product scope, the scope of your sprint. So yeah, this is the question which is commonly asked. Now coming to your daily Scrum. So again, daily Scrum is a time-boxed event. Here the team, the development team members will meet on daily basis. Each development team member would answer 3 standard questions. What they have achieved since the last time they have met. What are they planning to achieve today? And then if there are any impediments or obstacles they want to highlight in which is actually hampering them in achieving their goal of the day. So these are the three standard questions which is answered by each development team member. Please remember, daily Scrum meeting is for development team members to commit to each other, micro commit to each other on the work which they are doing, and highlight any impediments which they are facing. What is the role of a Scrum Master here? Role of a Scrum Master is mainly to tell the team to remain disciplined, to keep this event time boxed. And the second main role of a Scrum Master is to note all the obstacles which the team is facing. If the team is dependent on any external stakeholder for any of the requirement, then he can facilitate, Scrum Master can facilitate. If there is any internal dependency also, let's say some access issue the team is facing, then there also he can pitch in and he can facilitate, so that development team can achieve their goals smoothly. What is the role of product owner in daily Scrum meeting? So product owner is optional. If he is not available, he can skip the daily Scrum meeting, because this meeting is mainly for development team members, and he can look at the task board or the Kanban board which the team has created, the development team has created, where they have explained the to-do task, the done task, and the upcoming task which they are going to pick up. So product owner can understand the progress of the team by looking at the task board if he is absent from the meeting. Another important feature about this daily Scrum meeting is it should happen at the start of the day. It should happen at same time every day and at same place. Why? Because we don't want team members to remember every day where they want to meet, at what time they want to meet. We want to develop this habit that team meets at 9 a.m. On this conference room A1 every single day, so that no one forgets and no one needs to keep a track of the time and place. And it should happen at the start of the day, because the team is highlighting their obstacles, they are micro committing to each other the goal of the day. So in any obstacle they are facing, if they highlight it at the start of the day, then they can always resolve it. Another important thing which we need to remember about daily Scrum meeting is they are not status meetings. If any impediment is there which team is facing, then that impediment can be kept in parking lot and can be discussed in the subsequent meeting, but not in the daily Scrum meeting, because it is time boxed for 15 minutes. This is time boxed for 1 month, and your planning meeting is time boxed for 8 hours for a 1 month sprint. Accordingly, we can tweak the duration. Now again, coming to certain confusing and commonly asked question about daily Scrum meeting. Can any outsider attend the daily Scrum meeting? Firstly, the daily Scrum meeting is for the development team, but if any outsider, or let's say if any other Scrum Master is dependent upon the task which this current team is performing, then he can always attend the meeting. If the management wants to know the progress of the team, then they can always attend the daily Scrum meeting. But the rule is they will only attend it, listen and stand silently. They will not interfere in the affairs of the development team member. If they have any question, they can always ask it after the daily Scrum meeting, but not in the ongoing Scrum. And Scrum Master needs to ensure that they follow this discipline. Second is, what if anyone is coming late to daily Scrum meeting? So what if the Scrum Master is coming late to the daily Scrum meeting? If the Scrum Master is coming late to the daily Scrum meeting, then please remember that the daily Scrum meeting is for development team. Scrum Master is only facilitating it. It is the responsibility of the development team to run this meeting. So if he is not present, then development team can continue their meeting. Another question which people get confused about is, what if any development team member is missing or late in the daily Scrum meeting? So please remember, this meeting is just for 15 minutes. While waiting for someone for 5 minutes doesn't sound too much, but to ensure that discipline and to respect everyone's time and commitment, it is not advisable to wait for anyone, even for a minute or two, if they are coming late to the meeting. So development team should always continue with their meeting at the scheduled time. Now another very tricky question. Please understand this question very carefully. How should the time zone of your daily Scrum meeting be managed in case you have a distributed or a dispersed team? So firstly, it is not advisable to have distributed or a dispersed team, but sometimes because of many constraints, it is not possible to always have a co-located team. But let's say, so answer is bit tricky. There is no clear yes or no. So let's say if the two teams have a time zone difference of, let's say, 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours, then one team can start at 7 a.m. another team is starting at 10 a.m. Then you can have one common time zone or common time meeting for this daily Scrum, so that both the teams remain aligned with each other. But what if the time zone difference is too much? If it is more than 3 hours, 4 hours, if it is for 7 hours or 8 hours, then if your one team is sitting in UK, another team is sitting in US, then what the US team can do, they can write their answers of these 3 standard questions. At the end of the day, they can send it to the UK team. UK team at the start of their daily Scrum meeting can read those answers which is sent by UK team, US team, and can continue with their daily Scrum. So it completely depends upon the requirement of the team. What we need to understand is, team is trying to micro commit to each other. If the team needs to liaise with each other, collaborate with each other more, they can keep another meetings. But in case there is a significant time zone difference, then they can always minute it, record it, and another team can always play it at the start of their daily Scrum meeting. Now, another Scrum event which we are going to discuss today is review and retrospective. So firstly, what is review? The one confusion and a very big confusion which I want to dispel here is, review meeting is not just the demo meeting. It's the meeting is not just about demonstrating the work which is being done, but this meeting is more about collaborating with the stakeholders and develop a common shared understanding of what they are trying to achieve as a team. So we are trying to bridge that gap that exists between the internal stakeholders or the development team who is working on the product, developing the product, and the end user of the product. So develop a shared understanding of what they are trying to achieve, what their next product increment should look like, uh, and how they should plan their work. That is why this review meeting is kept. Firstly, who should be present into this meeting? So the entire Scrum team should be present. All the internal and external stakeholders who has any stake in the increment that is being developed by the Scrum team, they must be present in the review meeting. So how this meeting should be conducted? Firstly, identify the attendees, all your internal and external stakeholders which should be participating into the review meeting. Firstly, the identification should take place. Secondly, after identification, you can send out invitation to them to attend the review meeting. Then the development team needs to prepare for the review meeting. So they need to understand, they need to update the Jira board or any other software on the task that they have completed. If there is any task which is still pending, then they should also highlight it so that transparency can be achieved and every stakeholder is informed in terms of why this particular task or feature is not being developed by the development team. So after that preparation has taken place, when you have so you don't want to end up in a situation where you have completed certain tasks but it is not present in your Jira board. So preparation is therefore important. Then the summarization of the goal which the team has achieved through the sprint is being done by your product owner to all the stakeholders, that what the team has achieved. The Scrum Master will always remain present into the meeting, and he can also tell the stakeholders and all the attendees about the velocity of the team, the burn down graph of the team, what is the efficiency rate, how they have improved so far. So this can be summarized by Scrum Master. And then finally, how they have achieved it and what the development team has achieved it. Then the development team should give the demonstration of this to the client, to the product owner, all the stakeholders who is present. And once this demonstration has taken place, then the discussion should take place. The feedback should be taken from the customer. Adaptation, if any, needs to be taken place. Then that adaptation points should always be recorded. Now, coming to the confusing questions for the review meeting. First is, what if the PO, your product owner, is not available in the review meeting? So ideally, product owner should be part of your review meeting, but in case if there is some holiday or if he is not able to present, then we need to keep in mind that review meeting is not just about the development team. It is also about that end user. It is about developing that common shared understanding between the development team, Scrum team, and the end user of the product. It is also about demonstrating product to all the users, taking their feedback and planning for the next sprint. So in case your PO is not available, to honor each and everyone's time, to respect the time and the commitment which everyone has given, we should never cancel the review meeting just because the product owner is not available. Scrum Master can take notes from the meeting. Scrum Master can facilitate it. Scrum Master can tell to the stakeholders the goals which the team has achieved during the sprint, and your development team can take notes on the feedback that is being given by your end user and can later on share it with the product owner. But the review meeting should not be cancelled. Another common question which we have for review meeting is, what if no significant work is achieved by the Scrum team in the sprint? So again, should we cancel the review meeting just because we have nothing to demo? Again, the answer remains the same, that we need to remember only the demonstration of the working product does not happen in the review meeting. Review meeting is about having a shared common understanding of the goal which everyone is trying to achieve. It is about connecting with the stakeholders, with the end user of the product. It is about understanding if any market dynamics has changed during the period. It is also about taking feedback from them. It is about understanding what is the next most important feature for the customer. It is also about planning your next sprint. So therefore, even if any significant work has not achieved, then also the review meeting should take place. Secondly, if there is significant work that has not been done by the development team, then some replanning must take place. Scrum Master can think about adding some additional resources into the team. The team can plan deprioritizing certain tasks. Team needs to take certain crucial decisions, like whether the team will still be able to achieve the remaining product increment. So all these should be discussed with all the stakeholders to bring that transparency, and their feedback should be taken, and accordingly your solution approach should be adapted. So you should not cancel the review meeting just because a significant amount of work is not there to be given as demonstration to the stakeholders. Now, coming to our last event, Scrum event, which is retrospective. So what is retrospective meeting? It happens always at the end of your sprint, wherein team looks back at the work they have done. They appreciate the good work they have done, and they also identify the areas of improvement. So what you need to keep in mind regarding retrospective meeting is, what are you going to continue which has worked for the team, and they will continue it into the next sprints. What as a team they will stop doing because it has not worked for the team, and what are the new things which the team will start doing from the next sprint, because these are certain areas of improvement that has been identified. So what are you going to continue, what you will stop doing, and what you will start doing. So these are the three major decisions which the team takes in retrospective meeting. Retrospective meeting is not about fixing accountability. It is not about playing blame game. Retrospective meeting is about developing and improving as a team, and retrospective is the opportunity for team members to praise each other on the good work they have done, and yeah, so these are the things which we are trying to achieve through a retrospective meeting. Now coming to common questions of retrospective meeting. What should the team do in case your product owner is your client? Should he be allowed in the retrospective meeting? So firstly, in the retrospective meeting, team should be having a candid conversation, candid and open conversation about the areas of improvement. In case they are not comfortable sharing their weaker areas in front of product owner because he is your client, then he can made optional in retrospective meeting. But the scrum master and the team at the end of the day needs to understand that product owner is an integral part of the team, and an environment of trust and safety should be developed in a retrospective meeting. So even if your product owner is your client, the team should feel safe enough, candid enough, open enough to discuss their weaker areas in front of the product owner, even if he's your client. So development of that safer environment, trustworthy environment, uh, should be done by the scrum master, so this problem team doesn't face. Second is, should any external member attend the retrospective meeting? Again, if the external member only attends the retrospective meeting because the team invites him. If the team doesn't invite any external stakeholder, then they are not present in retrospective meeting. So again, the idea is team should feel safe enough, open enough. They should not have any inhibitions to share their weaker areas and to highlight on the areas of improvement. If they are feeling inhibited because of the presence of an external stakeholder, then the goal of that retrospective meeting will not be achieved. So if the team is comfortable with the external stakeholder, and if only they are inviting that external stakeholder, he should be part of retrospective meeting, otherwise he should not be. Yeah, so I hope these questions, especially which we discussed at the end of each event, will help you. I will request you to go through these questions because it is very important to understand them thoroughly in order to answer your PMP questions easily. I hope you like my video, and I would request all of you to share your feedback with me. Thank you so much.